the part of Ludwig Lager's book, Nietzsche's psychological achievement, which is at the end of the book, summary, and it's just called Nietzsche's Selbstvernichtung, the self-destruction of Nietzsche. And I was reading the part about the what is it called? Selbstüberwindung in German. Self-overcoming. Which is interestingly enough for me, who is reading with an eye for the morphology of words, in German Selbstüberwindung, self-overwinding, we could call it, because Überwindung is Windungen. In German are the also the rings of wires in a transformation machine, which transforms the current from a certain quality to another quality. Or the word Überwindung, when applied and self-overcoming on our spatial and visual model of the soul field, means that we change the inner structure and quality and transfer of energy in the soul field in such a way that it stands against the instincts that were originally manifesting themselves inside the soul field. Or even it may be the egoistic willpower acts that cannot find an ultimate satisfaction, because the self-overcoming motive in Nietzsche means that the ego is striving to overcome obstacles, and the direction, the intention, the goal of this self-overcoming is naturally the self. Okay. In the first stage of becoming a kind of superman, it is overcoming, at least in Nietzsche's theory, it is the overcoming of external obstacles. The goal of the act of overcoming, which is a willpower act, is hitting some other willpower center which does not yield immediately, and on this, pressing on it, it then becomes victorious, overcomes the resistance, and this is its essential kind of feeling of power. As Nietzsche also says, the growth of power, the feeling that the power is growing, is the only proof of power. Willpower cannot simply rest, like, now I have achieved a certain level of willpower, now I will put my legs up on the table and enjoy this radiation of willpower. No. This is not how willpower actuates itself, how it feels itself to be strong. It has to hit a resistance. Interestingly enough, the actus purus, as is a kind of in the scholastic metaphysics, the world, cosmos, emanates out of the Godhead by a pure desire or will act of creation. But it has to hit something, probably to be, to felt like all powerful. Or maybe it is this creation out of nothing. It doesn't have to overcome anything. It simply plays with creation. Well, this is a special case which does not concern us now here. The idea was originally in me born, that the vision that if there was a cosmic dust, simply, or something, then the God willpower, the monotheistic God's creation would look like, waves of energy emanating from the Godhead and hitting the resistance of the cosmic dust, and thus creating the universe by overcoming the resistance of inert matter. This is one possibility. The other possibility is that the metaphysics of one God creation is that it does not need anything, it simply emanates everything. But this is a special case. Now we are considering the human being, Nietzsche's, on the way to Superman, Übermensch. So it is the willpower that is overcoming obstacles. And in it experiences itself as ruling, as strong, as victorious. But this is in the long term, it is not, it cannot come to the end. As we have said, acts of willpower are not any act of the ego, is not spread in time and space. Like when you have eaten good, and you have been like playing tennis yesterday again for 2.5 hours, training also after that the serve with the left hand. I always give you these examples of my practical life so that you can feel that I'm not, an abstract philosopher. Then took a good shower and brushed my body with a brush and oiled myself with olive oil. And then I felt good. And I felt good continuously for a long time, where I could lie down, legs up. And I watched even a kind of Christmas fairy tale, which I always watch once during Christmas time, the night before Christmas, a love story, which I like in a certain sense. There is a certain mysterious touch of true love in it. And I know it is a fiction, and I know that it is acting, but I grant myself the relaxing time, legs up, and eating Christmas chocolate and the German Christmas Stollen and tea with honey and so, and just dreaming a little bit. That's okay. Whoa. But it was only possible because my body and soul were fully relaxed, enjoying the space and time of relaxation after bicycling and 3 hours of tennis and shower and everything like that. But the acts of willpower are not like this. We know from biocentric phenomenology that the ego point itself, which manifests itself as a parasite, as an intruder inside the human soul field, is the only entity that really exists, however it may sound strange to you, in the sense of being permanent, unchanging, a Platonic kind of essential idea, a thing in itself. All the rest of all processes in the biosphere of the planet Earth are Heraclitean in the model of biocentric phenomenology. Everything is growing, changing in time and space. Growing, being born, growing, getting older, decaying, dying, dissolving, and giving birth to new generations. It applies for everything. The only entity that is permanent and that is also without time and space is the spark of the entity X, which manifests itself in the human soul field as the ego point. And out from it, waves of, power, let us say, or the acts of the ego are emanating, slashing like shots through the soul field. And we call them then, as we have already done many times, the 5 derivations of the soul field. And they are consciousness, self-consciousness, always egoistic and personal, and egoistic willpower, naturally, and personal egoistic objectifying perception, which makes out of phenomena objects of perception, and then personal egoistic abstract thinking in concept, creating the models, conceptual models of reality, and then catching the soul into this illusion, believing that these models are the reality because they are true. So at least believes the ego. But now, very important things. Very important item of this description. All the acts of the ego, cognitive acts, are made of ontologically of the, let us say, substance of the soul field. The soul field is real. It is a morphogenetic field. It has an continuous kind of presence in the time and space of this biosphere, planet Earth. It is not somewhere else. That we cannot measure it in laboratory, in the psychology laboratories, is another story. It is either not yet achieved, the technology for that was not yet achieved, or it will never be achieved because it is ontologically different from the body kind of propagation of measurable nervous system signals that are measurable, that are quantities, whereas the phenomena, the qualia, the experience of the signals as they reach the end in the central nervous system, somewhere in the cortex, and auditive cortex when you hear, in the visual cortex when you see, in the smelling cortex if you smell, and so on, haptical cortex. So until there, you can follow them. But then there is a gap, black box, and then there are the phenomena, qualia, experiences that are not measurable, that are only kind of descriptively given by the subject in the laboratory. If you ask him, what do you feel? You can see some, signs on the screen or on the encephalograph, but you don't feel what the subject feels. You have to ask him, and he has to describe it in the common language. So this is an illustration to support the idea that all the acts of cognition are nevertheless somehow transformations of these real soul fields, but the part of the ego which makes it to an act of cognition is timeless and spaceless. So even the whole act of cognition, that is this transformation of the soul field, happens, we cannot even say so quickly that you cannot measure it. It is itself timeless and spaceless. The echo, the wave transformation of the soul field of an act of willpower, and even this, we are now specifically concerned with the will act of overpowering resistance of some other ego center, or maybe of the inertia of the matter. This moment is timeless and spaceless as it flashes out from the ego as a willpower act, but it is carried ontologically inside the soul field. The transformation of the soul field makes it possible that it happens in this biosphere, on the planet Earth, and this has some time, naturally. It's like an echo, so that when you overcome somebody's resistance in a fight or in a kind of intellectual competition, an argon of Socrates, let us say, when you persuade somebody that he has to keep silent and has to admit, I know nothing, I don't know the answer, this is a condition of a soul that is prolonged in time, and you can enjoy it. But it is relatively short, because then immediately the emptiness of the willpower act comes back, because the essence of it is overcoming, and that which is overcome already does not give the satisfaction anymore. So you do have to overcome again and again and again. So this is what sometimes Klages called an Ahasueric kind of obsession, work alcoholic obsession of achieving success, working, not being able to stop, because then there is emptiness. And then Nietzsche suggests a strange kind of solution for this problem is the self-overcoming. That is, you overcome by a decision of willpower even this desire to perform all these acts of overcoming of real resistance. You give yourself a command not to want anything anymore. And this is the core of the ascetic ideal. And this is the core of the priestly mentality, which in this sense shows the highest, according to Nietzsche, highest level, highest depth and quality and quantity even of the willpower, because it becomes ascetic. It renounces the world and renounces all desire, all acts of willpower. And by this fact, it becomes fascinating for those who are still caught in the wheel of wanting. But the special meaning of the Klage's analysis of this Nietzsche's psychological description is that he shows that Nietzsche himself was torn between these two archetypes, between the Dionysian, which was defending life against the acts of willpower, against all cognition, which defended the phenomenal experience against the cognitive scientific analysis. And then the other archetype in Nietzsche is the Yahweh, which first is described as Socratic part of Nietzsche, which together with Socratic tradition desires knowledge, where knowledge is necessary for living correctly and properly in a polis, or evil, envy, and bad action, and cheating, and treason, and envy, all arises, according to Socrates, while the members of the polis do not know. That's why he goes to the market and asks them, do you know what is truth, what is beauty, what is justice, what is friendship? So the hope, when they will know it correctly according to his ideas, according to his concept, then they will not make quasi inimical, dangerous, destructive. They will not perform acts of envy and hate and stupidity. Knowing is important for them. This is one aspect of Nietzsche, which we call Socratic. Even though in his work he is attacking Socrates very much, but this is attacking him from his Dionysian point of view. So, altogether, the unusual message of this book of Ludwig Klages, which is not translated to English, and I would very much like somebody to translate it. If it does not happen, I will try to get it done somehow, because it is very, very, very important, I guess, because we see today on YouTube and some other channels a revival of interest in Nietzsche, because it is natural. Europe and the States and the United States and all the branches of the Indo-European warrior type thinkers they experience at the end, the decadence, the falling apart of the Indo-European civilization. The Chinese are coming back, and the Asiatic cultures and the African nations, and Russia is also a Indo-European nation, but it is more in contact with the Asiatic influence, the Chinese influence. So I don't know. So the thinkers of the West have naturally are worried what's going to happen, and so they return back to Nietzsche, who has prophesied this downfall of the last man, and they are celebrating and they are reading and they admire Nietzsche, and they do not know that he himself was split, his personality was split between these two archetypes. The Socratic, which later became a kind of Yahweh archetype on the one side, an enemy of life, a super ideologue, a willpower kind of carrier, and on the other side, the Dionysian, the passive, the ego-dissolving, ecstatic character of Nietzsche. And Klages points out that whatever wisdom he achieves while operating in the mode of Dionysus is very good and should be preserved, and is defense of life. But whatever he achieves when operating in the Socratic in Yahweh mode is dangerous to life, is actually the continuation of those otherworldly ideologies like Hebrew, Christian, and idealism, and modern science even. The book is called The Achievement, the Psychological Achievements of Nietzsche. And whatever he achieved while analyzing the morals and the value system of Indo-European cultures is very good and is valid, and it proves that he has uncovered the egoistic kind of elements in all our great, so-called altruistic values in the religions, and kind of democracy, and being, correct, politically correct today, and altruistic, and taking care and helping others, and believing in God, and so being good man. And so in all this, he has uncovered the elements of resentment and of egoistic willpower, egoistic desire to dominate. Okay, this is valid, and this is the so-called re-evaluation of all values. This should be kept, and no one can talk about the soul of man. That is, no one can be engaged in psychology today without having understood this message of Nietzsche. This double level of our inner life, the mask that we have on the outside, and the true motivations that are unknown, undisclosed even to ourselves. But the other side, when he tries to be metaphysical and when he tries to build up the new man, the Übermensch, Zarathustra. And when he talks about nature and life, that is wrong, according to Klages, because there he succumbs to the other archetype, to the Socratic Yahweh archetype. And he confuses life and willpower. He erroneously supposes that life itself, that is the biospheric thrust of growth and of changing of forms and procreations and photosynthesis, whatever we have, metabolism and in living matter, is wealth to power. And this is very wrong, according to Klages, because he completely forgets the motherly aspect of life. The motherly aspect of life is giving without overcoming. Naturally, suddenly, there are also Dionysic moments of truth and description in the Zarathustra book, and everywhere. Klages points out that this dichotomy, this two parts, two halves of his character of Nietzsche, permeate his complete work from the beginning to the end. And this is due to his very sharp self-reflection that Nietzsche could not close his eyes for one of these parts of his character. And so he kept this split continuously through all these 20-25 years of his writing, now with thinking. And it became more and more self-destructive. But we shall must not refuse Nietzsche like an crazy man who his work is kind of not usable anymore because he was some schizophrenic or whatever. No, he was the one who, even though being damned to stand out these two opposite poles of his character that were fighting each other actually, because as in Klages says, there are philosophers and there have been human characters that are split between the two, life supporting one and life controlling or even hating or resentment towards life on the other side. Okay, they are not so rare, but this special combination of Yahweh on the one pole and Dionysus on the other pole, like archetype, is really deadly, because whatever Yahweh regards as valuable is terrifying to Dionysus. It means his demise, and the other way around. Whatever Dionysus needs to proliferate and to live and to express itself through soul and body in a human character, immediately is a dissolution and destruction of the Yahweh or Socrates aspect, yeah. And the Socratic aspect would be if there would be only the two archetypes fighting in Nietzsche, Socrates and Dionysus, then it could be solved in the sense that Socrates would retreat back to his irony and say, okay, I don't care, you do whatever you want, Dionysus, I will ironically dissect it, but I will not be crazy about it. No? But not so. When the Socratic element transferred himself to the Yahweh, kind of over priestly preaching visionary character, there is no irony anymore. It becomes deadly serious. Yeah? And the biography of Nietzsche suggests that this is what he acquired already as a child from his father. And he was a devoted child, was singing in the churchly choir and helping during the services in the church. And he loved his father very much. Next, support for his psychoanalysis, let us say, of Nietzsche, Klages has found in the analysis of his handwriting. Klages, by the way, Ludwig Klages, is the founder of scientific, let us say, graphology, the art of reading the character traits of a personality out of its spontaneous handwriting. And this is truly acknowledged now, even till present day. There are schools of graphology that follow exactly the description of Ludwig Klages, and it is applied until today. And there, Klages discovers this permanent split of character in Nietzsche, and he goes so far as to postulate that his style, this unusually flashy and kind of dramatic, a kind of almost romantically lighted by the lightnings of great vision and fast kind of carousel-like dives into surprising paradoxes, is the result of this inner tension between these two archetypes. And that his madness at the end, his breakdown of the soul field, was not so much caused by a physiological kind of degradation of brain cells, as other biographers of Nietzsche suppose that he was suffering under the end stages of syphilis. But it was a kind of, the tension between these two archetypes was too much. They simply tore themselves apart, and the result was a kind of darkness in the soul field. So the main idea which was behind this today dithyrambic morning session about Nietzsche was this idea that after you, as a philosopher and a kind of hero and a kind of man of great willpower, have overcome all the obstacles, then you can suddenly fall into emptiness because there is nothing else to overcome. And since the act of overcoming is a cognitive act, and cognitive acts are timeless and spaceless, they do not last. You cannot sit up, and legs up and enjoy your will to power as a permanent state. You have always to search for something to break down, something to prove your power. That is also a well-known phenomena that professional sportsmen who have achieved great successes, who have won the Olympic Games, who have been the first in their discipline for many years, suffer a kind of psychological depression at the end of their active years, because suddenly they don't have this kick of overcoming the opponent in a fight. This is my special contribution because I also play tennis and I was a fencer, and I enjoy these moments of ecstatic warrior mentality, but I have polished it by my natural admiration for beauty and style aesthetically, so that I must really say, I enjoy more training than combat. And I try to move smoothly, and this is difficult enough. This self-overcoming in clumsiness of your own motion is an endless enterprise, because you have 600 muscles in your body and some 120 bones, and when they all should move in the perfection, then you can work on it until you die, until there is no energy more, and you don't have to overcome an external enemy. You overcome simply your own mistakes. Okay, so this is this, and you concentrate also, or you experience, you perceive the beauty of color, shape, form, weather, wind. If you are playing outdoors, clouds, and so, and this is sometimes even more important than getting the points, than beating the opponent. This is the solution I suggest to all those willpower sportsmen who want to prevent a depression at the end of their active years.